Hey all, FrozenFoxy here, and I am coming to you to let you know that there's going to be a few less uploads in the near future, and there's a very good reason for that. In lieu of the fact that we are moving closer and closer towards the 4,000 subscribers, I am kind of working on a special 4,000 subscriber project in the background. Which I will not let you know about. You will have to wait to find out what it is. Hopefully, it's going to be released around the time that I get to 4,000 subscribers, which I'm hoping actually does happen. But we'll see how it works out. I'm going to be working on that in the background, so I'm going to be doing a little bit less uploading of the Fallout 3 Let's Play that I'm working through right now, and that's mainly so I can work on this special project that I think a lot of you are going to like. I'm really hoping a lot of you are going to like it anyway. Anyways, for the rest of this, I'm going to be using the time up to basically talk about another question that has been coming up a lot lately, and that is why do I hate Bethesda games? Well, it's not Bethesda in general that I hate. It's more most of the newer games that they've been making, and Morrowind is actually included in that, as well as Oblivion and Fallout 3. I don't know about New Vegas yet because I haven't actually tried that out, but there's some really good reasons for why I despise these games. First of all, they're very buggy games, and sometimes bugs are acceptable, but a lot of the bugs in Bethesda games are not particularly acceptable. From facts like getting stuck into random objects and not having a way out. I mean, you people who are from the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 playing Oblivion and Fallout 3 have already told me that you have gotten stuck in objects in those games and you have no way of getting out of that except for loading a previous save. Whereas me, I've got the no clipping toggle, which is great. It's great that I have that, but a lot of people don't have that. So that is a major downfall bug. There should be something that you should be able to do to get out of objects, like if the game senses you've been in the same location for too long, it might bring up a little HUD that says, "Are you stuck? Would you like to move?" Something like that, or maybe at the beginning of the game tells you to hold down a certain button combination that will allow you to bring up that HUD that will allow you to move out of an object. I mean, games like EverQuest 2 actually had that capability where if you got stuck, you could do a slash command within the game and you'd get out of the object. I find that great that they think ahead that you may get stuck in these objects because it's possible that there's going to be glitches, but in Oblivion and Fallout 3, there's no such thing as that for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 version. And if I didn't know about the HUD or console bringing that up, as some of my fans who have been watching have told me about, then I would have never been able to do that. And I would have probably had to repeat a couple different locations because I have gotten stuck a couple different times while playing Fallout 3, which is really bothersome. Another one of the bothersome bugs is that NPCs will sometimes fall through the world. And we've already seen that with my game because of Lucy West. She's just missing. She's not there anymore at all, and so she's fallen through the world. I actually take care of this a little while from now, which you probably won't be seeing when this goes up. But just to let you know, I will be taking care of the Lucy West situation eventually. And I do find out that she is not where she's meant to be. She's not even close to where she's meant to be. That's a big problem. And I mean, there's also bugs where characters won't perform duties that they're supposed to go through. Like, maybe it's part of a quest that you need them to do something specific, and they won't do it. They'll just stand there and not do anything at all. That is a major game-breaking bug, and I I just can't accept that game-breaking bug because I'm in the middle of a quest and it doesn't work. What am I supposed to do? Restart the entire game or try to reload a save? I mean, maybe the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 people don't have that liberty of going back to another save before this NPC broke. I don't know. And that same thing could happen for a computer player as well. I mean, for the computer player, myself, I've actually run into one of these quest breaking bugs, and what I had to do was disable the NPC and re-enable him just to get him to do what he was supposed to do. So, I mean, I can do that on the computer version, but I don't think I should have to be doing that. That's a major bug right there. And I guess because the game is so big, a lot of people basically think that they can get away with just having that be screwed up like that. I really can't stand that, honestly. And the fact that it's just left in the games as if it's okay is a big problem in my opinion. Not only that, but let's talk about the voices in the games. A lot of the characters in these games, I can pick out the fact that they have talked to me earlier and they were a different character. I can even pick out across both Fallout 3 and Oblivion that there have been the same voice actors in both of them, and they sound exactly the same. Some of them even sound kind of monotonous when they should have a lot more emotion in these games, and it makes them feel like really hollow characters. I don't want to be playing a game where the characters are very hollow and people that I can't get into to where I feel immersed in the game, as if they are real life people that I would be talking to as I'm moving along through this game world. Yeah, Fallout 3 is not a real life world, but I want to feel like I'm immersed in that world enough to feel like it's a real world. Same thing with Oblivion. I'm just not feeling that. And where Oblivion and Fallout 3 have failed, games like Gothic have not. I feel like when I go talking to someone in Gothic, that they feel like a real character compared to Oblivion and Fallout 3. And, you know, the characters in Oblivion versus Gothic, well, Oblivion obviously looks like it has better characters, especially if you add some of the mods on it, but that doesn't really matter. I'm not a graphic fiend. I'm more of an aesthetics fiend. To basically paraphrase the extra credits guys over on the Escapist magazine. I actually watched one of their things a little while ago where they were talking about graphics versus aesthetics, and that really encompasses what I feel about these games. Is that it doesn't really have the aesthetic to make you feel like you're really in that world, and it ends up being a lot of the samey tedium throughout the entire game. And whereas I can go into Gothic and feel like I'm not doing the samey tedium, even though I am doing quite a bit of the same stuff over and over again, it feels more meaningful within that game. The sounds feel a lot better to me, especially when you're talking to like an NPC in Oblivion or Fallout, and you suddenly notice that the voice changes dramatically. You can tell it's the same voice actor, but it was probably recorded a different day in a different way. Somehow their microphone had moved, or they turned something up or down, or the actor was feeling a different way, something like that. But they suddenly sound completely different, and it doesn't make any sense. A good example of that would be the kid down in Little Lamplight. I believe his name was Zip. He was basically talking extremely fast for quite a while, and then suddenly, when you're saying bye to him, he talks slow, like he's normal, and it feels like he's gone out of character, and really, really hard out of character. It doesn't sound right anymore, and that's a big problem to me. Because I basically have lost the fact that I was immersed in this game at all to begin with, and now I'm not immersed in the game whatsoever anymore. I have just uh, basically realized that this character is not an actual character, and they've just been recording this at different times and with different moods with the voice actors, and that makes it really annoying. It's a big problem in my opinion, and you can tell that a lot in Fallout 3 and Oblivion. I see that tons and tons of different times. Now, I've seen some New Vegas videos here and there when clicking around the old YouTube, and noticed that it seems like they may have fixed a little bit of that samey voice acting that fluctuates up and down in volume, but I'm not quite sure about that. I'll have to check it out in the future because I haven't played New Vegas myself. It may have the same problems because, as far as I know, it uses the same engine as the other ones. So it's probably going to be more of the same stuff and more of the stuff that kind of bothers me with that. Um, Not only that, but let's go back to talking about Oblivion. At some point in the game, when you get your character up quite a few levels, you start to see a lot of these. I guess they're called Oblivion gates that you're going through, and honestly, it feels very tedious to go through those Oblivion gates over and over again. It's basically there to make the world harder. I think. Basically, it's supposed to scale with your character, more or less. But when you're going into these Oblivion gates, it's pretty much the same thing. You always go into the Oblivion gate, start out in the middle of something, you get some bloodweed or whatever it was called, and then you work your way into the middle of a chamber where there's some kind of boss demon or something like that. You kill him and you get some strange weapons and armor from him, and then you do it all over again. Next Oblivion portal. It feels like I am basically doing the same thing over and over again. It doesn't really feel like it taps into the story too much. It doesn't really advance the plot that much, and I find it to be more of a problem than a good thing in the game because it doesn't really feel like I'm doing anything special in the game by going into these Oblivion portals all over again. And on top of that, I have experienced where I'll have what is supposed to be a very powerful spell according to someone in town, and I go to use it on like the weakest creature I can find, and it does like 7 damage. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong because some people have been telling me that they've been getting hundreds of damage out of the same kind of spells that I was using, but for some reason it never really worked for me, and that's kind of boring when I get so far into the game that they're like, oh, let's throw Oblivion portals everywhere because you're super powered now, but your spells, they don't do anything. They're not that great. So, it doesn't really feel immersive. It doesn't feel like I have become powerful enough to use these spells because I'm doing 7 damage when I should be doing a lot more. So, a lot of the time, I find myself working with just the melee weapons, which is not that fun. You want variety in the game. That kind of gets boring after a while, just using the same thing over and over and over again. Now, I mean, I've played older games that don't have anywhere near the graphical nature of Oblivion, and the aesthetics of the game draw you in so much, they're a lot more fun. One very good example for me would be Full Throttle, and basically that's about a biker gang, and I believe it's a Tim Schafer game, which Tim Schafer is really awesome at making adventure games. But Full Throttle is amazing. It's got great music to start off the story. The voices are spot on. You feel like you're really involved with characters that could be real people, and it could be a real atmosphere. Obviously, there are some gameplay elements in there that make it really difficult to play that game, such as there's like some biker battles where pretty much you're not sure if you're going to win or if you're going to lose almost all the time, even when you get the correct weapons. So it's kind of up and down there, but the game itself is so immersive that you can forgive it that little thing with the biker battles because you've got all these different awesome things. Like, I mean, you start out the game in a trash can. A trash can. That is absolutely fantastic, and you have to beat your way out of this trash can. And you really feel there's humor in it, and there also feels like you're getting involved into this character's life. His name is Ben, and it really feels like you're getting immersed in this game. And this isn't a first person shooter. This is a point and click game where you're literally telling this character to move around the screen, but it feels a whole lot better than Oblivion. And I would rather be playing Full Throttle than playing Oblivion. Even Fallout 3, I would rather be playing full throttle. It is a wonderful game. I highly recommend it if you've never heard of it or never played it. Um, I mean, all you really have to know is that there is hilarious classical music and bunnies walking through a minefield to make them go boom. That pretty much explains the entire atmosphere of the game. It's humorous, it's dark, and it's just a wonderful game to play. I mean, beyond that, let's think about other old games that I like to play, like Thief, for example. Thief is a wonderful old game, and honestly, a lot of the stuff that's in Thief is not even closely matched in any other games, like the sneaking mechanics, all that kind of stuff, trying to get around and steal things from people, knocking out people, all that kind of stuff. And the story is pretty involving. It really feels like it's a part of the storyline all the time. Like everything that you're doing from mission to mission actually matters to the game, and you're really trying to push the storyline forward. Whereas in games like Fallout 3 and Oblivion, the storyline often gets lost way in the background. Um, my Let's Play of Fallout 3 is an amazing example of how the main story can get lost in the background. I have at least 50 hours up of Fallout 3, and the only thing I have done with the main storyline is exit the vault. I haven't even continued the main storyline for 50 hours. 50 hours. A lot of this game is not about the main storyline, and that would be fine for the most part, but the characters and everything in the world just doesn't really feel like it involves you enough to make up for the fact that the storyline just really isn't there, and you often don't feel like you're pushing the storyline through. You're more looking for other storylines to enjoy within this massive game, which I can appreciate because, I mean, for the longest time I played EverQuest 2, and I felt that that was a lot more involving, even though I wasn't pushing any main storyline most of the time, and I was often just doing side quests to push those stories. But it felt like there was a lot of stories that were built in there, and you didn't necessarily need to follow any main story. There was always an ever evolving story in that game, which made you feel a lot more immersed than it does in a game like Fallout 3, where the story doesn't really feel like it was evolving. It just feels like there's these little tiny side stories that aren't really that immersive. And that becomes a big problem for me, in my opinion, anyway. Um, let's move on from Thief and let's think about like Gothic. Gothic is pretty much the same kind of genre as Oblivion, where you have a very open world and you can pretty much go anywhere and do anything. But often, a lot of the things that you're doing out in the world feels like you're pushing forward the story rather than just the tedium of going out there and finding another Oblivion gate along the path, which honestly, at some point, I was finding Oblivion gates maybe every 5 steps, and that's dull. But with Gothic, I felt like there was always something new, even though I was fighting some of the same enemies over and over again. There's just a different feel to it. It feels more drawing. Feels like you're more in the world. And now I'd like to finish this up with possibly one of my favorite immersive games, and that would be Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. This game is, well, basically when it starts out, it seems like it might be an open world game, but it's not quite an open world game. It's not quite a Fallout or an Oblivion, but you do get the ability to move anywhere in the town that you're in currently that you want to. It's not like you have to go here first or you have to go there, but it's a little more linear than either Fallout 3, Oblivion, or Gothic. But the fact that the characters in the game all have pretty specific voices throughout the game. They all have pretty specific characters throughout the game. Basically, when you're talking to Smiling Jack, as there was a Smiling Jack in Fallout 3, and I swear that must have been something that's supposed to be a throwback to Vampire the Masquerade. But that Smiling Jack was nowhere near as good as the Smiling Jack in Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, because when you talk to him, you know his personality. His personality is dripping from everything that he says. You can hear it, you can feel it, you're very immersed in what he's saying. The graphics might not be as good as some of the things that we see out today. However, the lip syncing that they have in that game is fantastic. Fallout 3 doesn't have anything on the lip syncing that they have going on in Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. Um, and that really gets you involved into the game, I think, having that kind of level of lip syncing, because it actually feels like they're talking to you rather than there's just a voice actor in some random studio somewhere recording the lines. Now, I know that there was a few times that the voices did fluctuate just a tiny bit within Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, but it was very forgivable because they felt like they had a lot more emotions, and they felt like they were actual characters that you could really, really get into. It was not something that was easily forgettable. The characters are easily memorable to me. I can pretty much name every single character that is in the entire game. Whereas if I think of Fallout 3, I can maybe name, I don't know, maybe two characters at the very least, because I can off the top of my head think of Moira and Three Dog, because they were basically the most involving characters, the most significant characters that really spoke out to you while you're walking around the wasteland. I mean, yeah, there is President Eden, but he doesn't really feel like that major of a character because he's just on the radio most of the time, and it doesn't really feel like he's developing for most of the game. But Three Dog, who is on the radio just like President Eden, feels like he's developing quite the personality when you listen to him on the radio. I mean, who hasn't heard the old Three Dog? I mean, I have heard that so many different times, but it's still in my head because I can still easily remember it from the game because it is such a memorable character to have in the game. And not only that, but there's also Moira, who feels very memorable. She sends you out on some insane quests thinking that you can go out there and do whatever the hell that she wants you to do, like break your legs, go get irradiated, and all this kind of crap, which no one in their right minds would actually do for Moira. And then on top of that, she goes and she decorates your house, if you get a house in Megaton, with all kinds of crap. She will even decorate it with bodies, which is crazy. She is absolutely a lunatic, but she is a very, very immersive character. And that is something that I like to see. And if Fallout 3 had a lot more of those immersive characters, I think it would be a better game for it. I don't think it would be a perfect game, but I think it would be a much better game. And it needs those kind of aesthetics that drive you to want to get to know these characters and want to get to know what's going on in the game, all that kind of stuff that will, in the end, be very memorable. And you can look back on them and say, hey, I played that and it was a lot of fun. Um, Games like The Bard's Tale do this pretty well, where they'll have a lot of characters that are individuals in the game, and you feel like you're getting to know various characters, even though there's a lot of samey townspeople within the game. But it's forgivable because there is a lot of very defined characters. Fallout 3 misses that mark a lot. A lot. They could have had a lot more defined characters within their game. They have plenty enough voices to have defined characters, and they already have all these townspeople that are samey in there, and I think they could have done a much better job. And the fact that they hired Steven Russell, that was great, but they didn't really give him enough to do, as far as I'm concerned. which is funny because he did a lot of the voices in there, a lot of the robots mainly, but he did do a lot of voices in there. And in games, let's throw back to Thief. Stephen Russell also did a lot of voices in there. Like in Thief 2, The Metal Age, he actually did Garrett and the main protagonist in the game, or antagonist. I don't know where I'm going with this. But, anyways, the point is he's also the enemy as well as the anti hero in the game, which makes for an amazing, amazing voice acting treat to really hear because you can actually tell that there's two distinct characters that he's doing within that game, and nothing about them whatsoever sounds the same at all. And Garrett or Stephen Russell, he also does even more characters in the game, such as he'll do some guards. Most notably, I believe he does Benny, who is a major humor point in a lot of the Thief games because he's been included in all three of the Thief games so far, and everyone loves to listen to Benny because he has these crazy, whacked out stories. In Thief Deadly Shadows, he's talking about his wounds throughout the game, which is it's pretty funny to listen to that. But you'll also hear him in the original Thief game talking about how he has to guard a place and how he's kind of annoyed. And then I believe in Thief 2, he's in various different missions talking about how he's getting hired to these different places after he got messed up at these other jobs because Garrett came through there. It's pretty funny to hear him throughout the game, and I like that he's an immersive character that you can listen to and you want to listen to him, and he's still the same voice actor as the one who was playing Garrett, but he sounds so different that it feels like it's a completely different character. Whereas I can find about 5 or 6 different Moira clones, and they don't feel anywhere near as developed as the original Moira does. And that's why I call them Moira clones, because they don't feel developed. They don't feel like other characters. And that's a big problem, in my opinion. I think that you need more characters in games and you need to give them personality because if you don't give them personality, then I'm not going to feel like I'm in the middle of this game. And if I don't feel like I'm in the middle of the game, I'm not going to really like it that much. And if I feel like I'm doing the same thing over again and doing it constantly, plus I'm also talking to the samey people all the time, I'm not going to like the game. And that is a lot of why I despise the Bethesda games. But there are good games out there that Bethesda has done, or at least worked on, had a hand in, such as Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth. That game was pretty good. It was a very good game, although it was extremely buggy and I basically crash every 5 feet when I'm walking in that game, but it was the kind of game that I wanted to continue trying to play, even though I was crashing a whole lot, and so I suffered through the crashing and tried to get to different saves just so I could move on in that game and get to hear more of the game because it was a very involving game, even when there was crashes that were interrupting the game. That's got to tell you something. There is a big difference between Call of Cthulhu and Oblivion. Oblivion didn't crash very much for me, but it's Oblivion to me. I feel oblivious of the game's story, to be honest, because I mean, when the game started, there was like Uriel Septim, who I guess was telling you about what you had to do once you got out of the castle or prison or whatever the hell was going on. I can't even remember. It was so forgettable. Um, and then after that, it was like the story just kind of drifted from there. I felt like it was gone, and I wish it had come back, but it did not come back for me. And that's a lot of what made Oblivion kind of crappy because I didn't feel drawn into the game at all, and I wouldn't play it. I just wouldn't play it at all. But there are worse games out there than Oblivion. Honestly, I have played a few, such as Damnation. That was a very, very awful game. If there is any game that doesn't draw you in with its aesthetics, it's going to be Damnation because The characters don't seem to fit the atmosphere. They don't talk properly. The voice actors are really bad, very monotonous, and they make the people in Fallout 3 look like they were good voice actors, even though they all sounded like they were doing the same voice for about five different characters. When Stephen Russell was doing different voices for more than one character. And honestly, Stephen Russell puts most of the voice actors in Fallout 3 to shame. And I wish they had gotten more voice actors like Stephen Russell in there to really bring up the game to a level where I could at least feel somewhat involved in the game. But it is somewhat fun at the same time because it's a nostalgia factor because I remember playing Fallout a long time ago and that was a pretty good game. It was enjoyable. It really got you involved in it and I felt like I was part of the game, all that kind of stuff. But Fallout 3 really doesn't do what the original Fallout games did for me. And that's kind of sad because I wish the Fallout franchise had continued in a direction that would draw me in quite as much as the original Fallout games. Honestly, I would totally love to record the original Fallout game. However, I've had so much trouble with older games that I more or less avoid older games unless there's lots of good stuff out there to help me get it working really easily, which a lot of the time there's not, sadly. But yeah, Oblivion, Fallout 3, Morrowind all have the same kind of problems, and that's why I despise them. Not because they're terrible games, but because they're very forgettable, and they're not something that I want to spend the next 100 hours in. And Fallout 3 only makes me want to spend the next 100 hours in it because it's nostalgia. And that's the only factor that makes me want to continue playing Fallout 3. So there you go. You now know why I am not too fond of those games. We're getting into about 32 minutes here, so I think I'm going to close this out. This is like a podcast or something. I don't know. But I'll talk to you all later. Hope you've enjoyed this random rant that has gone on and on and on. And hope you stick around for more videos in the future. Bye for now.